All right, let's do it live on a Friday edition of the program. Merely Bo, the great Z, a draft day. We got a pick, buddy. We got some picks.
Finally, we
Let's
do
live.
have some picks. Let's live a little bit. Let's have some fun. Let's get some players here to the Cleveland Browns. And look, yesterday was fun. It was historic in many ways. I thought it kicked off. Eminem kicking it off was awesome. I thought Raj was in good spirits all night. It was pretty good.
Raj is like the commissioner version of Hef with that shirt unbuttoned to
He
his
is
navel.
unreal. Yeah, it was unbelievable. You had 14 straight offensive players drafted to start the draft, which is an NFL record.
Mm-hmm.
I think, what was the final tally? I can probably do that really quickly. So we had 1 defense, 2 defense, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 defensive players. So 23 on offense.
9.
The previous record was 19 in the first round.
Yeah.
Weapons.
Yeah, weapons. We talk about it. Quarterbacks. Draft one till you find one kind of a mentality. We are far more disposable with quarterback than we've ever been in the history of this league. You can get off of them relatively quickly. People don't get fired if you have to get rid of one in 2 years, sometimes even. It's pretty wild the way, considering the way you and I grew up in the sport and following it, where you got 4 or 5 years to see if you could play or not. Now it's by the end of year 1 or 2, if you're not hitting, we're moving in another direction, and they're far more disposable, quarterbacks are, than they've ever been. The thing that jumped out to me –
because of the change in the salary cap. But Sam Bradford's draft was the last draft where
that's right.
He came in as basically the highest paid player
he was,
in the league.
$60 million or something guaranteed right out of the gates. The other thing that jumped out to me, and obviously the Penix thing was the one curveball, but the rest of it was chalk. And if you go back to what we said, all of the things that we were hearing in February at the Combine – they kind of all came home to roost. I mean, it went the way it went. Caleb, there was Jaden and Drake. It was kind of a back and forth, but over the last month and a half, Jaden was the kind of consensus. For 18 months, it was Marvin Harrison's going to be the first position player drafted. He was. Jim Harbaugh was going to draft a tackle. He did.
How could he do that?
It's crazy.
How could he do
crazy.
that? How could
he do
that?
Neighbors to the Giants,
think about Neighbors going to the Chargers, where he's the clear number 1 versus with an elite quarterback.
Yes,
and instead he's going to the Giants, where they have a big question mark at quarterback.
They do, yeah.
That stinks.
It was so there was a lot of chalk. The Penix was the curveball, and now we get into
curveball.
Yeah, big one. Although Jason Lockenfor in the Washington Post wrote about this, that despite what it looked like on television last night, that Arthur Blank loved Penix. So something we can get into a little bit later on.
That was a pretty unique-looking reaction in the draft room.
It was, but he's got the receipts. Lockenfor is your guy. You know him.
I do know.
He's got the receipts in the Washington Post. So we got day 2 today. For perspective on that, Dane Brugler joins us on the hotline right now. He's our resident draft guru. He's the best in the business. He works at The Athletic. Of course, the Beast is sitting on our table right now as we're going through this. He joined on the Twisted Tea hotline. Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Dane, let's just start by looking back at last night. What jumped out to you?
I mean, 6 quarterbacks in the top 12, something that we've never seen before. Certainly, that will be the lasting storyline from this draft. 50% of the first 12 picks being quarterbacks. It really speaks to the desperation that a lot of these teams had. And I think there was a clear separation between the top 3 and then the next 3 that were drafted. If you weren't in those top 3 picks, you weren't trading out of there. Even though the phones were ringing, a lot of teams wanted to get up in those top 3 to get one of those quarterbacks. Those 3 teams, being the Bears, the Commanders, and the Patriots, they didn't budge, which don't blame them at all. And then it became just kind of a waiting game for the Vikings, the Falcons, and the Broncos. Rarely do you see teams be able to sit and just wait for the quarterback to fall to them. But it really speaks to the uniqueness of this quarterback class. So it'll be fascinating to track these guys, not only this year, but the next 3-4 years.
Dane, first of all, congratulations. Your top 22 on your top 100 all got drafted. You had 27 of the 32 first-round picks in your top 32, which I think is awesome. Now, there were a couple of outliers, and it starts with the 8th overall pick, Michael Penix, who was 52nd on your big board. I don't know if you'd updated between the time I printed this out maybe 2 days ago. What I'm sure you had to ask people, and I can tell you from talking to people, around here, varied reactions to it. What did you make of that?
I mean, I've never been more shocked during a draft, just frankly. And honestly, like, I mean, we knew Michael Penix was going to go in the first round.
Yep.
You know, my top 100, I always care about being right 3 years from now more so than on draft night. So, you know, even though Michael Penix was just outside my top 50, we knew he was going to go somewhere in that first round as a matter of where. And you know, in my final mock draft, I had, as I was working on it, talking to somebody in the league, and I was hesitant on putting Penix at 13 to the Raiders. I was like, would they really take him that high? And the person I was talking to was like, well, does he get to 13? And I was like, wait, what? Okay, so maybe Michael Penix is more well-liked by several teams, these quarterback desperate teams, because if you're the Vikings, that was one of their options if J.J. McCarthy was gone. The Saints were interested in Michael Penix and maybe a move up to go get him. But the Falcons, yeah, I mean, that was a team that was mentioned, but who really gave it a ton of credibility, you know, that notion that they would draft him after what they did with Kirk Cousins. It doesn't
Right, they're not a
sense.
quarterback needy team. They just gave somebody $100 million guaranteed, and while he is 35 and coming off of an Achilles, and here's the thing that I don't understand. They had to know going into this draft that Michael Penix would be available to them at number 8.
Sure, absolutely.
So
and
they knew that back when they signed Kirk Cousins to $100 million.
Well, they knew that when they
180
only
million.
met with him for 45 minutes and didn't bring him in.
Which is
They didn't work him out. They only
Yeah.
talked to him for 45 minutes. That's it.
it's wild. Wild.
It's
I mean,
very rare.
and
Very
he's
rare.
if Kirk Cousins has to play the next 2 years, and my guess is he'll actually be pretty successful, so maybe
Right.
he plays more than that. But even if it was just the 2 years, Penix would be 26 when he finally becomes a starter in the NFL. Is this? I mean, it just feels unprecedented on many, many levels to me.
On one hand, I understand, like, throw as many resources as you have at the most important position in sports. You know, I can understand that line of thinking, but we're not talking about a second-round pick here. We're talking about a top 10 pick in a draft where you want top 10 picks because there's elite blue-chip talent at the top. So, yeah, the Falcons, they could have added a stud receiver, Rome Odunze. They could have added the best defensive player on their board, whoever that was, whether it was a pass rusher or a corner. They could have gone with more offensive line help. They could have traded back and got a lot more picks. So there's a lot of different things. They must have loved Michael Penix, plain and simple. Where
But then why
they looked at it and said,
why sign Kirk Cousins?
it must have been something that was developing. You know, like they probably liked Michael Penix, and then during the process, you know, that's something that really changed things for them. But it's tough because hypothetical. Let's just say Drake May. Let's say he fell a little bit, and the Falcons drafted him at 8. I think we would be looking at this a little bit differently because it's like, okay, well, you know, as much as we loved Drake May, like for the Falcons, it's like, okay, we just can't pass on this guy.
Yep.
How they felt about Michael Penix was how a lot of us felt about Drake May. And so we have to look at it through that prism where they liked him that much, where we just can't let them get by us. So, but it is I think a miscarriage of resources. It really is, because you have an opportunity to, I mean, just where things stand right now, they're probably the favorites in the NFC South.
Right, exactly.
And so you have a chance to really go for it, you know, pad your team, your roster, so you're not only competing for the division, you're in a winnable NFC. You have a chance to really go far. Why? It's hard to justify why they would make this decision. Now, who knows? Kirk Cousins might get hurt in week 4. Michael Penix comes in and is lights out, and it's like, well, they made the right choice. You know, like we'll see how this whole thing plays out. But right now, it's hard to understand the thought process.
Yeah, it's tough. And it's here's the other thing. Cousins is still rehabbing, so Penix is going to make all the minicamp throws, and he's going to be the one participating with the receivers and all of those things. It's the damnedest thing. In terms
Well, they can't
of,
be both. They can't be right on both.
Well, no, and I think it's the word, you know, use that word humanalytics. Like in their head, they're thinking, and the Fontenot even said last night, this is like 4 or 5 years. You know, maybe it's 4 or 5 years before they play Penix, which is just the stupidest thing to ever say out loud. And we all know that. But then the thing is, you're not taking into account the guy you just drafted. But I did want to ask you about some of the other things. The Penix thing, there's a lot to that. Who is in the better situation, Caleb Williams in Chicago or J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota?
I mean, Caleb Williams, he's going to an offense where the offensive line has gotten better year over year. And you look at the targets with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and now you throw Rome Odunze in that mix. I also have Cole Kmet. I mean, the hype's going to be out of control for the Bears in year one of the Caleb era. So it's going to be really fascinating. I can't wait to see. I think the wild card or maybe the unknown variable in this is Shane Waldron, the new offensive coordinator. The most important relationship in football is between the quarterback and play caller. And we have a rookie with a first year, now in this first year with the Bears, offensive coordinator. So how do they shape this offense to fit what Caleb does so well? And at USC was a lot of play action. There's a lot of RPOs, a lot of zone reads. So how do the Bears really construct this offense to fit him so he can have that, not layups, but really live over the short to intermediate part of the field and just make that transition to the NFL a little bit easier. Now, I have better or more confidence in Kevin O'Connell doing that for J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. And he also has a pretty good roster with Jefferson, Jordan Addison, first-round pick from last year. But I think that Caleb is more NFL ready. And so the situations are ideal for a rookie quarterback. But Caleb's he is more ready to hit the ground running and really, see how far they can take this. It'll be interesting to see when we see J.J. McCarthy on the field. Sam Darnold, they signed to kind of be that bridge guy. He probably is going to be the starter from, when they get to training camp, and then it's really up to J.J. McCarthy to see if he can steal that away. So, this is two quarterback situations that if you were one of these quarterback prospects, you're kind of crossing your fingers to go one of those two spots.
So then to that end, is Caleb Williams in the best position a number one overall pick has been in since when? Because of the bounty they got from Carolina. I mean, it's got to be at the very top of the list.
And they're not a traditional number one overall picking team because they had that pick from Carolina. It's amazing when you look back at that trade. The Bears, I mean, GMs just dream of a trade like that where you end up with Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Darnell Wright, their top 10 pick from last year, in a trade. Just unbelievable how it worked out for Chicago. Sometimes you need a little bit of luck, and that's how it played out for Chicago to get the number one pick this year. And then also just with the way the last two off seasons have went. So it is the best situation we've seen a quarterback go number one overall in a long time. And like I said, the hype is going to get out of control. We're going to be talking about playoffs for the Bears in year one, and it's going to make the Bears must-see TV. It's going to make that NFC North a lot of fun. You look at what the Lions have done. The Lions had one of my favorite picks of last night with Terry and Arnold. Just player team fit, just awesome. I love what they did. And then obviously the Packers are a playoff contender, and Minnesota, they're not a pushover team. They're going to win games next year. So that NFC North just got a lot more fun.
It certainly did, and we saw, we talked about a weapons league, we talked about a historic in terms of, 14 straight offensive players to start, 23 offensive players in the first round. It ended with a couple of receivers as well, with Buffalo moving out. And what have you heard about what Buffalo was trying to do, get to 33? I've heard maybe it was to try to get a trade for perhaps Deebo Samuel from the 49ers. What did you kind of make of the way the first round ended with the Niners going receiver, and then at the end, Carolina coming up, they get Xavier Legette, and then now you have the 33rd with Buffalo sitting there all day to negotiate.
Yeah, and that's if you're Buffalo, they just had a lot of grades that were similar with all the players that were left. And I thought there was a chance they might trade up for, say, like a Brian Thomas Jr., who ended up going, 23 to the Jaguars. So, there was always a chance we could see them go make a move for one of these receivers. But once, their options were kind of limited, they kind of looked at their board and said, all right, we've got a lot of these receivers bunched together. We can keep just trading back, adding more picks. And, they are in a spot where this might be Debo watch tonight to see if the 49ers do deal. It feels like it's more likely than Brandon Ayuk, who if Brandon Ayuk was going to be dealt, it probably would have happened last night, considering what it would cost. It is interesting. Ricky Pearsall was teammates with Brandon Ayuk at Arizona State. Now they're teammates once again, at least for the time being. But yeah, with the Bills, there's plenty of receivers still available. Obviously, Adonai Mitchell from Texas, Ladd McConkey from Georgia is still around. Keon Coleman, Florida State, Troy Franklin, Oregon, Roman Wilson, Michigan. There's a lot of receivers still available. Is one worth taking at this spot for them, or would they go Johnny Newton, defensive tackle from Illinois? Would they go Cooper DeJean, corner from Iowa? Or maybe they do trade back again and get more picks, because this is a team that needs to build a roster with young, inexpensive talent.
All right, Dane, how did this fall for us? We pick at 54 in terms of what happened in the first round and who's there at the top of the second. Did the Browns, despite not picking, are we in a good shape? Or that the targets, this organization as well as anybody, the draft trends as well as anybody. What position are the Browns in today at 54?
Yeah, I still think they're going to look at this as, okay, let's see who falls to us. We've got about 20 picks in the second round until we're really going to be in range. Defensive tackle, this is a sweet spot. We ended up, only one went in the first round, Byron Murphy. So what does this look like for, the Browns with, say, Mason Smith from LSU, 6'5", 300 pounds, has all the ability in the world. It's just, he needs to get coached up, needs to take that next step as a talent. So, but if you're looking at the Browns roster, adding defensive line depth is a spot they may address. Is there a wide receiver that really jumps out at them at this spot, whether it's a Troy Franklin or somebody else? I did a second and third round mock draft last night about 2 a.m. as soon as I got back to my hotel room. And Mason Smith is where I arrived at for the Browns at pick 54. I think with the way the board played out, with knowing how this team kind of looks at these guys, Smith made a lot of sense there. And then in the third round, I actually had him going Marshawn Lloyd, the running back from USC. We're going to see a run on running backs in probably that late second and then into the third round. These guys are going to fly off the board, Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson. If the right running back is there for the Browns in the third round, that's a direction they could go.
Interesting with the defensive tackle there. What if it ends up being Mason Smith? What can you tell us about him? What stands out about him and why he fits for the Cleveland Browns?
Every team wants 6'5", 300 pounds, and those guys are in short supply in this draft. But that's what he offers. He's a former top recruit, was injured for almost all of 2022, came back this year and really was knocking off the rust and getting better and better throughout the season. So, but he has a lot of ability when you look at the length. He's 35-inch arms. His ability to win at the point of attack. He can move up and down the line, so he can play over the A gap. He can be a little more diverse with where you line him up over outside the guard. You can line him up at different points on the defensive line and get creative that way, because he does play with quickness, he does play with length, he does play with power. Strong hands. Once he gets his hands into blockers, he can control what they're doing and move them backwards or work around them. So he's still a young player, and that's just still 21 years old, still in terms of block recognition, in terms of setting up blockers with his rush plan, just being a more technically refined player. That's where he needs to get better, which is expected of a 21-year-old. But you look at the ceiling with all the talent and all the ability, and I think that's what's going to speak. That could speak to a team like the Browns, who you work him into the rotation as a rookie, and then hopefully by year 2, he's ready to push through and be a reliable starter for you.
So looking at your round 2, round 3 mock, which is at theathletic.com, where you can also get the Beast, which is the best thing to supplement you while you're watching. It's like having the guide right there that gives you the answers to the test.
So good.
Who is this? Oh, this is who they are, and you get to know literally everything about them. So the way you had it fall is that any receiver that really seems like they could have been interesting, the Browns, they're off the board by 52. What about offensive tackle? I know you have Kingsley going the pick before. He could be somebody the Browns would be interested. Would Blake Fisher make sense at this point? One of the other tackles, if let's say they don't go defensive tackle, but were to go offensive tackle.
I certainly think that's possible. And, we talk about a quarterback tax. If you want to draft a quarterback, you probably have to get him a little bit earlier than ideally you want or what your grade says. That's kind of the way it is with tackle as well, especially this year because it's not a deep position. These guys, if you don't get your tackle early, you're probably not going to be able to wait until the third round, fourth round. So I don't think it would be too early to take a Blake Fisher there at 54, 6'5.5", 310 pounds. Played right tackle opposite Joe Alt for the Irish, but when he was recruited to be the left tackle, and he was actually the left tackle initially before he got hurt, and that allowed Joe Alt to emerge as the guy that we saw go 5 overall. So there's a lot of ability with Blake Fisher, and again, it's he's not the most technically proficient player, but he's big, he can move, and he actually reminded me a lot of Nicholas Petit-Frere, who the Titans drafted in the 3rd round a couple of years ago out of Ohio State. A player who is kind of like their swing tackle, I guess, and we'll see if he can lock down a starting job for the Titans. But has a lot of ability, and so you see the quickness, you see the strength of the point of attack. You see a guy that needs to be more consistent in areas, but this is why you have offensive line coaches that coach these guys up. I think he could be in the mix for sure.
Here's the thing, folks: the beast is sitting on our desk.
Yeah.
Dane Brugler writes it. You get it with a subscription to The Athletic.
Yes.
And if you have it with you, I can't imagine watching a draft without it, quite honestly, because it's a cheat code on the draft. And it's an incredibly different understanding. There's no way you could have done the job you did last night without it. Impossible.
Or today or tomorrow?
No chance.
Or the TV show where I went through 4 guys at 5 different positions, so 20 guys, and I could sound like I knew what I was talking about.
It's all right there.
And really, I was just parroting the words of the great Dane Brugler. And you are given credit throughout my my diatribes about these players because you are the one who provides me with the information. So that is very, very helpful. But, yeah, everybody get it. It's like when you watch a great show. We're watching, Bo and I, you just finished it. I'm watching Shogun. You almost need either the Ringer or the Vulture kind of recap afterwards, the companion piece. So you're like, oh, that's what's going on. Oh, that's who that is. That's what you need here. That's what this is. This is the ultimate draft companion piece. Well said.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for your time.
All right, guys. Enjoy tonight and tomorrow.
Yes,
we shall.
That's the great Dane Brugler of The Athletic joining us on the Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea Hotline, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Okay, we got a lot to get to. We're going to take a deep look at what could happen in the 2nd round for us, the 3rd round for us. Obviously, Z and I have not broken down what happened last night, although we did a little bit. There was a lot to get to on that front. Going to be a fun program for you. We're off and running. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Second and third rounds tonight. Much of it was chalk. A lot of the mock drafts in terms of, if there were 28 or 32 players that they had in mock drafts were selected. A lot of the order was selected.
Yep.
The Penix was the first curveball in this thing, and it's a tough one to wrap your head around. You're starting to trickle out how it happened. Raheem Morris gave the most stupefying answer I've heard last night. I should see if I can find it. I had the quote on it up.
I mean, think about
this.
this.
I think I have it. Go ahead.
They've had the 8th pick.
Okay,
back,
here you go.
They've had the 8th pick back-to-back years, and they've used it to select a running back.
Yeah.
And a quarterback. A backup quarterback.
A backup quarterback. All right, so this is the quote. This is Penix last night. I'm going to just read this verbatim. He got called on the clock about calling Cousins. He got called on the clock, obviously because of the sensitive time with the issues of what you've got going on. It's never a right time to talk to a quarterback about those things, and reactions are always going to be private when it comes to those things, unless Kirk decides to tell you some of those things that are whatever they may be. But he's a competitor, just like us all, and you can always expect those things to go just like you kind of think. That is the biggest word salad bunch of nonsense.
Well, what he's saying is that Kirk Cousins probably
is
told him to
pissed
go
off.
take a hike, brother.
You're doing what? We have a team that can win the NFC.
Yes.
Give me a weapon. Give me a defensive game record.
You could have got the first defensive player on your board for your defensive head coach, Raheem Morris. You could have gotten Rome Odunze and said, okay, we're going to go Odunze, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Rondale Moore is a gimmick guy. Darnell Mooney's there who has a 1,000-yard season under his belt as well.
Yeah.
And we're lighting up the scoreboard. And by the way, we already have an excellent defense.
Yeah.
Instead, they're saying, oh, we're not going to do anything. By the way, when Kansas City did this with Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith, they had one more year with Alex Smith. And then
Alex Smith was the established starter. He was a former number 1 overall.
Sure.
This is
They didn't just pay him free agent money. It had taken them the playoffs the year before. He was their quarterback, and they're saying, okay, we've got one more year with him. Now we're going to get somebody for the future, and he can learn from it, and that's all great. You gave Kirk Cousins 4 years, $180 million, $100 guaranteed. You can't get out of it for 2 years.
It's 2 years.
Now, Denver did and said we're going to eat $50 million. I don't think that that's a successful formula.
No.
And so I think it's stupefying. Here's the other part of it that makes no sense. So, number one, it certainly looked like Arthur Blank was not happy. That was a very awkward thing. That draft room really didn't celebrate. It was kind of like,
yeah.
And maybe feels, I don't know what ultimately happened. Number two, if you were planning on taking Michael Penix, I would assume knew that before you were on the clock. And I would think that conversation that could have been had with Kirk Cousins could have been had a day in advance, a week in advance, could have even had a month in advance. Hey, we love this Michael Penix kid. You're the present. We think he's the future. If he's there, we're going to take him.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they didn't want that out. Kirk Cousins would be so upset that he would say something. I mean, he's a professional. I don't think there's any way he would.
Well, maybe, though, because his feelings here have been leaked out rather quickly and strongly.
Because it's absurd.
No, I know, but maybe he is somebody who would say, hey, they're thinking about doing this. Like, get this out there, how stupid this is. So maybe. I will say this. They went to great lengths to keep this quiet, to the point of not even bringing him into Atlanta. That's wild, to not bring a first-round quarterback into your building. They met with him for 45 minutes at the Combine. That's it.
It makes...
They didn't go to the pro day. They didn't bring him in.
Michael Penix has been oft injured.
And by the way, I'm not going to sit up here and act like I know quarterback evaluation. Okay? You get
I think
plenty
Michael Penix
right and
is
wrong.
really good.
Right, but you get plenty right and wrong. That's not what this is about.
No,
it's not about that. I have who knows who's going to be good. Drake May might be the best guy of this whole lot. Who the hell knows? Don't know.
That doesn't matter.
It's really hard. It's more the process that's absurd.
Do you remember when I asked Andrew Barry in that chair Monday night for the draft preview show, I said, what if blank would be a successful draft for you? And what was his answer? Do you remember?
It was maximization of resources, essentially.
This is a minimization of resources.
In back-to-back
you just
years.
took your most valuable asset, made your running back, before he played it down, one of the top paid players at his position. And so you get no benefit at all for drafting him early and from a monetary standpoint. Then you'd go the next year and you take a backup quarterback who is old.
Older, yeah.
He's
He'd be
24
next week. Yeah.
So that means Kirk Cousins is playing for 2 years. My guess is Kirk Cousins with Drake London and Bijan and Kyle Pitts, that's going to work out all right.
I would think so, yeah.
So you're probably going to play him again the third year.
Yep.
So we're talking about a guy who's not going to play, barring an injury, till he's 26 or 27?
That's wild.
Like Jordan Love wasn't old like that.
No.
And by the way, doing that there, you may have been able to win a Super Bowl one of those years had that been a piece that was valuable and could have helped you. And it ran Aaron Rodgers out of town.
Oh, yeah. Had they
It
drafted
ran
a
Devontae Adams
receiver?
out of town,
Yeah.
basically.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. No, I don't get it. It's a tough one. I mean, I understand what their thinking was: draft a quarterback till you get one, I guess, but not when you have a team that's ready made and
So
not at number 8 overall.
They could
Just
have
trade out.
Just
So maybe the Raiders were enamored. That was always what you heard, that they were enamored with him at 13.
So let them come up and take him, and let them give you 13 and something else awesome.
Yeah. Someone in that building loves him.
Here's
Clearly.
the deal. They've had 2 major decisions to make. And I don't know what the future will tell us about those 2 decisions, but the 2 decisions major that they've made in the last couple of months, 3 major. One was to get Kirk Cousins, universally praised. You're now the favorite in the NFC South. 2, hire a new head coach. We don't need Bill Belichick. He's not good enough for us.
No.
We're going to go with Raheem Morris. That feels questionable. And 3, the most valuable asset your franchise possesses, the 8th overall pick in this draft, you're drafting an older, oft-injured backup quarterback.
That's right. Yeah. No, it was wild. In terms of the other things last night, I asked this of Dane, and I was for our discussion as well. I mean, Caleb Williams, he might be in the best position a number 1 overall pick has ever been in.
Yes.
Luck was in a pretty good spot because they weren't a typical team that drafts number 1 either, because Manning got hurt, and so they were in a holding pattern a little bit. So he walked into a pretty good spot.
They had Curtis Fingerpainter was playing quarterback for them.
Right, but I mean they fell into Luck, and so they had him, and so he walked into a good spot. But typically number 1 overall, you're walking into a bad spot. This reminds me, the only thing I could think of was like and they don't have the success rate, but in terms of number 1 pick, great spot, it reminds you a little bit of like when the David Robbins got hurt and they ended up with Duncan. And it was like, that's not a typical team drafting number 1. This Bears team is not a typical team drafting number 1. This is a team that spent 3 years trying to build around Fields, and then the Carolina Panthers make one of the most boneheaded trades of all time, and now all of a sudden they're picking number 1 again and got the consensus number 1 quarterback in this draft. And now along with the Dunzier following, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, good grief, they are pretty loaded up if Williams is good and if the coaching can match.
So the team that Andrew Luck stepped into, their leading rusher was Vic Ballard, who averaged 3.9 yards a carry. They averaged 3.8 yards a carry as a team. They had Vic Ballard, Donald Brown, and Mewelde Moore, who at that point was not the Mewelde Moore of his heyday in Minnesota. Their receivers, their leading receiver that year was Reggie Wayne. So he still had Reggie Wayne. He had T.Y. Hilton, who had 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. They had Donnie Avery, who had 60 for 781 and 3, which was one of the best years of his career. And their top tight end was Dwayne Allen. So it was good, but it was not DJ Moore, Keenan Allen,
No.
Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, and DeAndre Swift. So, no, and in fact, were this the Minnesota Vikings with, Kevin O'Connell calling the plays feel good, but Shane Waldron's did a very good job in Seattle. They've been a fun offense. Geno Smith completely resurrected his career with Shane Waldron. So I think that he's quarterback friendly, and that's one of the reasons that they brought him there. And he's 11 personnel friendly.
Yeah,
which is what they are going to live in 11 personnel.
they are.
They will
Yes.
be. They may play every play in 11 personnel.
I think that's probably very likely. So 2010. So the 2010 Colts. So it's 2011 when Manning gets hurt. Is that the way that that worked?
He got hurt in 10. 11 is the year they went kaput, and then they draft Luck in 12.
So he got hurt at that beginning of the 11 season, right, or in the off season?
Maybe in the offseason, yeah.
Because he got hurt and then did not play in 2011, right?
Yep.
That's what elicits them Like, does Manning play at all in 11? So that's Caldwell.
Hold on, I'll pull it up right now.
Yeah, they
right.
go 2-14.
Right.
I just don't remember the chronology of the Manning injury.
2011, Peyton doesn't play at all. Curtis Painter goes 0-8. Orlovsky goes 2-3. Kerry Collins 0-3.
Before the season, Manning had neck surgery.
Yeah.
So his neck surgery allowed for this, and then they leaned all the way into it with Curtis Painter.
He went 0-8.
Yeah, but the 2010
Orlovsky was too good, 2-3.
Yeah, because the 2010 Indianapolis Colts were pretty good, because that would have been Manning's.
2010, they went 10-6, won the division.
Yeah, lost to the
Peyton threw for 4,700 yards, 33 touchdowns.
Reggie Wayne, Freeney, Mathis. Yeah, that's coming off not far from removed from the Super Bowl year. But either way, no, this is it. All right, how about Kwesi?
He did kind of what Houston did, got his quarterback and his edge rusher.
And he gave up minimal to get him. He moved up one spot to make sure he got his guy with J.J. McCarthy. He gets DJ Turner on the back end of it, where they move up a couple of spots to get him. The reason I posed that question to Dane is the same thing that you were saying as Dane was answering it, the coaching. If you are a Michigan fan out there, and there's plenty in Northeast Ohio, this is the best possible spot for J.J. McCarthy.
This is the perfect offense for himself. He's very good on the move. He's got plus athleticism. You're going to get him in the boots. You're going to run that offense. He's got two great receivers. When they get healthy, you're going to get, Hawkinson back. So you'd have two great receivers, great tight end. You bring in Aaron Jones from Green Bay. I mean, they have all the makings of a very formidable offense. You lose Daniil Hunter, and you bring in now the pass rusher. You sign Jonathan Grenard, and you bring in, was it Dallas Turner? Is that his name, DJ Turner?
Dallas Turner, DJ Turner?
Dallas Turner.
Dallas, yeah.
Dallas, yeah.
So you bring in Dallas Turner and Grenard, so now you have your two pass rushers again. You get your quarterback. So, I think he did a very good job.
He basically, they went from kind of not sure what their path was going to be to on the fly, if McCarthy's good. I'll say this, whatever he is, that situation is one that will get the best out of him. I cannot say the same for Drake May. I cannot say the same for Jaden Daniels. But I do think the quarterbacks in the two best spots are those two.
Yep.
I can't say the same thing for Bo Nix, who is 24 years old already and going to Denver. Now, it seems like Sean Payton wanted him all along, that he was the guy he wanted.
Don't you remember?
I do.
Jimmy Bang Bang?
Jimmy Bang Bang. I remember talking to Albright at the Combine about Nix.
Jimmy Bang Bang had it. Remember, he said he was out and some lady that he was talking to was the wife of somebody in their personnel department, and they were taking Bo Nix. April 11th. I read it on our show.
That's right. Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go.
So by the way, leaks are really not that big of a deal.
No, they're not. They're fine.
People are going to do what they want to do.
Yeah. What was Pedro's thoughts of Ricky Pearsall going to the Niners at the end of the round?
He didn't know really much about him. I showed him the video of C.J. Stroud, who thinks he's very much a dude.
CJ must have thought that they could get him with the 10th pick in the second round.
And must have been hoping, yeah. Which could tip the hand they may be looking at a wide receiver.
Maybe that'll be the end of active quarterbacks on draft shows.
Yeah. Well, they have Nico, Diggs, and Tank Dell. I don't know why they'd be looking at a receiver.
Weapons.
Well, yes, the weapons like you're replacing Stephon Diggs in another year.
Yep.
He thinks it means they're trading Debo. And Michael Silver actually said last night that if they trade one of them, it would be Debo. So we'll see if that ends up coming to fruition. Supposedly that's what one of the reasons the Bills trade back to 33 is to buy more time so they'd have all day negotiating, try to get this thing done.
Yeah.
They want to get Debo for Josh Allen.
Any big surprises other than Penix? The rest of it was pretty chalky.
Yeah, no. That was one. I mean, he had out Dane had Xavier Liette at 76 on his big board, so that makes it feel like a little bit of surprise. I like Xavier Worthy to Kansas City.
Okay,
let's
go
do
ahead and
this
try to conversation
beat Tyreek
right now.
Hill again.
If you're Buffalo, how do you do that?
If you're Buffalo, how do you do what?
They traded the pick to give it to Kansas City to pick him.
Yeah.
How can you do business with Kansas City when you're trying to beat them? They have been the roadblock in front of you for the entire Josh Allen prime, and now you enable them to draft whom they want. If I'm being in Buffalo, I don't answer the phone, man, if it's them. I get a Kansas City area code. No, I'm good.
Yeah, no thanks.
We'll sit.
I'm not helping you.
Not you.
Yeah.
Somebody else wants to come up, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not helping you out. That blew my
No.
mind. I could not believe that. And here's the thing in Kansas City. Sky Moore, so long. Like,
Rashee Rice.
yeah, like they are just going to keep taking swings.
Yep.
This is how good they are and how good Mahomes
Surprising
is.
they haven't been so good at it.
No, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter because they're winning Super Bowls while they're taking swings at weapons.
Yeah.
Who else could do that? Only them.
Right.
Yeah, it's nuts. No other real surprises, though, other than that. As for the TV coverage, I was able to watch some of it and bounced around a little bit. I'm a Kuiper guy, so the way that it felt to me was the ESPN coverage with Kuiper was your traditional, from our youth, nuts and bolts
Yep.
football coverage. Okay? That's what it was. It was Kuiper gives you a little bit of a breakdown. Lewis, who's great, he's got his stuff. Booger sometimes, I don't know, but it's fine. The only thing, like Schefter, they obviously were told you can't tip picks, but he pretty much did.
Yeah.
Like he would say, I'm thinking quarterback here in Atlanta. This could be a shocker. And so that leads you
That's
to
so
say,
annoying. Yeah.
right. So that I thought McCarthy, though. I didn't think it would be Penix. I thought
neither.
it would be McCarthy, if anything. But they were a very nuts and bolts, and that's the one that I spent most of the time with. I did go over to ABC. That's where the College Game Day guys were. Those are guys I'm very familiar with. Theirs was much more, and Saban was on that. Theirs was much more of a, almost like listening in on a conversation among people you know and you respect their opinion. Theirs was far looser.
Yeah.
Far more fun, frivolity, looser, big picture, that type of stuff. Theirs was pretty good. Saban was good. I watched a little of McAfee and
I heard
Belichick.
that was great.
It is, but I mean, it's all so it's one. It could be one of the great like TV odd couples because apparently he's going to be on McAfee every Monday now.
Okay.
Which I think will be great. But like Belichick's in a full suit and tie and pocket square and all of that, and he's sitting next to McAfee. Bill told some great stories. He retold a Randy Moss story, which was absolutely epic about Randy when they traded for him rather. He was very good on the breakdowns of like what he had seen. It was very clear that Bill anticipated being involved in this draft was my read of it, that he thought whether it was New England or somewhere else, he was going to be drafting some of these players because he knew a lot about them.
Yep.
He was really locked in. So that stuff was pretty good, but I did find myself craving Kuiper. I always went back there to get his thing.
My dad I know he watched the NFL Network, and he liked because it was basically Eisen with Klatt, Jeremiah, and Charles Davis. So you got
So they brought in Klatt for that because he's not an NFL Network guy. He's Fox.
that was the three. That was the trio that was with him.
So that's a good group.
That's a great group.
That's a really good group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We will, coming up next, we'll take a look at what could be in store for us in round 2 and round 3. Take a look at some second-round mocks, what position groupings they have us going, and just kind of the mindset of our operation. We will do that coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And be part of one of the most passionate fan base in the NFL. Join Next Gen STM, presented by Ticketmaster. The official wait list of your Cleveland Browns. Being a Next Gen STM, your best chance to become a season ticket member in future seasons. Visit clevelandbrowns.com/nextgen to reserve your spots today. All sorts of round 2 mocks are out there. Some even Chris Trapasso has a round 2 and 3 mock for us. It's almost easier to do the positional thought versus the player thought.
Yes.
Because it's not like you and I are going to have a coherent thought on Patrick Paul, offensive tackle out of Houston, 6'7", 315. But what we can tell you is offensive tackle is a position of need and or one that where they are going to use one of these picks on it. Can you tell me what Dane has to say? You want to do that one?
Who do you want?
Well, we don't have to.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Who you want?
I don't think we need to because it'd be a waste of time unless that's
Patrick
the guy.
Paul is his.
That's it. Tell me where they're ranked on his list.
He's got him as a second, third round grade, the number 8 defensive tackle. I'll just read you the
offensive
quick
tackle.
Offensive tackle. I'll give you the quick summary.
Quick summary.
Because he has a quick summary at the bottom. Overall, Paul has the size and strength to keep defenders occupied, but his rhythm breaks down quickly, and opponents will find success until he improves his rudimentary recovery technique and hand usage. Similar in many ways to Chukwuma Okafor, he has the tools to develop into a functional NFL starter, but might require a redshirt year. So whoever we drafted at offensive tackle would get a redshirt here.
Provided we don't have injuries, like we did last year.
You'd have to have You'd have to have 2, I would say, before you're getting anywhere there.
Yeah. He has Chris has us taking running back Marshawn Lloyd out of USC in the 3rd round.
Marshawn Lloyd, 3rd round grade from Dane, his number 5 running back in this draft. And Lance Zierlein has us taking Blake Corum, who probably needs no introduction to this group listening here today after what he did at Michigan. No. Marshawn Lloyd, 4-star recruit, was the number 5 running back in the 2020 class. Bijan Robinson was number 1. Overall, last year, 820 yards, 7.1 yards per carry, 9 touchdowns. Overall, Lloyd doesn't have the profile of a high-volume back, but he can be a spark. He can spark an NFL offense with his mix of patience, burst, and promise as a pass catcher. His tape gives me flashbacks of a thicker version of Duke Johnson when he was coming.
He's a guy
out of Miami.
As some would say. Duke. Some would say that, though, that he's a guy.
Some would say that in maybe not the way that I would like them to say it.
Lance Zierlein has us taking a defensive tackle, Rook or Horhoro?
Orororo.
Orororo?
Orororo.
That sounds like Scooby-Doo. That's what I was going to say.
Rook
Orororo?
Orororo. 2nd, 3rd round grade, the number 4 defensive tackle in this class. 6'4", 294 pounds. So a little bit smaller. Mason Smith, by contrast, is 6'5", 306. Mike Hall, 6'3", 299. Rook, we'll get the little final background on him here, courtesy again of Dane Brugler. 3-star recruit.
He doesn't fit the
Orahoro, so 9 sacks the last 2 seasons. He's an underdeveloped pass rush instincts and finishing skills cloud his next level projection, but displays intriguing movement skills and force of contact to continue getting better and better. Has NFL starting upside with scheme versatility to play multiple positions both inside and outside.
It doesn't seem like a fit for us at all. No. Blake Corum, we know, at Michigan. And then Steve Minch has us taking Chris Braswell, the edge out of Bama. In the
2nd or 3rd round grade, the number 8 defensive end or edge rusher on Dane's background. We have 5 edges right now.
How many edges can we have? I mean,
you can't. You have Miles, you have Zadarius, you have Obo and Alex Wright, who are 4 that are locks. Isaiah McGuire, you drafted in the 4th round a year ago. He's probably going to be on the team as well.
Yeah.
And I think they think Alex Wright can be the successor to Zadarius Smith. So I don't see that one happening. Braswell was a 5-star recruit, number 2 weak side defensive end in the 2020 class behind Will Anderson Jr. 1-year starter. He had 8 sacks last year, led the team with 3 forced fumbles. Slightly undersized. He's 6'3", 250. Still a work in progress, but his first step quickness and ability to convert speed to power are solid starting points. Has the down-the-road starting potential. Reminds me of the Bengals' Joseph Osai when he was coming out of Texas.
Here's the
I do not see us taking an edge.
An edge, no. Here's just for like a perspective. So we picked 22nd tonight. It's the 54th overall. So in terms of like the best available, just pull up ESPN. You see from a defensive tackle position, names to know: Chris Jenkins, Mason Smith, Mike Hill. Those are the names, or Mike Hall rather. Those are the names that are kind of around at that edge.
Braden Fisk,
in that.
Yeah,
22 guys in.
Johnny Newton. If you go later, Mekhi Wingo, Tavondre Sweat. So, yeah, those are – look, what I think is the most interesting about this, and I talked about running backs actually a little bit on the preview show yesterday, is that you have two people going with running backs to the Browns in the third round. So that leads me to believe there has been some chatter about the Browns understanding that they have got to replace Nick Chubb in the near and probably for the present and the future.
Yeah.
And that they are not as enamored with Jerome Ford as a as a full-time back, as a lead back. And I know Andrew Berry views it as more of a committee position. I think that he's happy with the running back room. I think it would have to be a case of where the board goes a certain direction and the best player left is clearly a running back that excites him a great deal. And
so that would be Jonathan Brooks out
right.
of Texas would be that. Would
be
that box where
right.
if all of a sudden he falls to 54 and it's like, God, this is
he would have been a first-round
NFL
pick.
In a normal world, that's a star.
And what you have is you have time for him to get fully healthy because you have a very, I think, competent running back room with Ford, Pierre Strong, Deontay Foreman, Naheem Hines, and then whatever you get from Nick Chubb when he comes back. So I do think running back is in play. I still think, barring a surprise, and I could see the board fall apart to the point where they go and take one of the linebackers, and the two that you would think about would be either Junior Colson,
Michigan,
or Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that if things completely fall apart there, but I really think it's going to be an offensive tackle, defensive tackle, or wide receiver in the second and third.
And I think that, unfortunately for us, I do think there will be a wide receiver run here at the top of the second
round. And Blake's,
round
nobody gets to us.
Donald Mitchell is there. Ladd McConkey's there. Keon Coleman is there.
Yep.
And if you look at the top of the second
Wilson,
round,
Troy
Wilson.
Franklin.
Sure. So if you look at the top of the second round and you start to say who are teams who would draft a receivers, Bills, 33 overall. Yeah, absolutely. Patriots, 34 overall. You bet. Cardinals probably not. Washington has two of the top.
If I'm the Cardinals, so maybe go Harrison and Ladd McConkey and say, okay,
deal with it.
Let's go.
Washington has 2 picks. You can see that happening. Carolina has picks at 39. They need help at that. The Chargers probably need help at that.
Carolina just came up and got one at 32, so hopefully they would.
So maybe, yeah. And then you've got, obviously, with the tip of C.J. Stroud yesterday, leads you to believe that Houston is in that world too. That reaction was interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
But it's hard to imagine. I mean, that 3 of the next 5 best available are all receivers, and I think they're all going to be long gone by the time we get there. So when you start to say, all right, once you get deep into it, if it is that position at 54 overall, that's when you get into the Roman Wilson, Malachi Corley.
So Malachi
those
Corley.
type of guys.
Yep. So if you were to look at Dane's big board, you said we have 22 picks to us.
Yeah.
So his top player left is Jackson Powers Johnson, a center from Oregon, who was 23rd. Cooper DeJean, 25th, corner out of Iowa. Johnny Newton, defensive tackle 2 out of Illinois, 28. Kool-Aid McKinstry, which is such a great name. Ladd McConkey, wide receiver, so that's first receiver. Marshawn Nealand, an edge out of Western Michigan. Adonai Mitchell, who is a wide receiver. He is a 6th-ranked wide receiver out of Texas. Zach Frazier, center of West Virginia. Chris Jenkins, tackle Michigan. Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. Cooper Beebe, guard, Kansas State. Jaden Hicks, first safety on his board out of Washington State. Kingsley, the tackle from BYU. Roman Wilson. He's got a bunch of Michigan guys in a row, actually, 41, 42, 43.
A ton of guys, yeah.
But there are the receivers that his receivers left are wide receiver 5, McConkey, wide receiver 6, Mitchell, 7, Coleman, 8, Roman Wilson, number 11, Malachi Corley, number 12, Troy Franklin. Those are the receivers that could be in. Jalen Polk is wide receiver 13. He has him 74th. That could be in play if it's receiver. The tackles, it could be, Kingsley, which would be a good value, certainly there. I mentioned the linebackers. That's where he has Colson 42nd overall, Cooper 46th overall. So maybe that happens there. And then the defensive tackles, Chris Jenkins. We talked about Johnny Newton, who will likely be gone by the Browns pick. And then you got Ohoroho, who he has 51st. Mike Hall 60th. What's interesting is Mason Smith as his defensive tackle 6. And doesn't have those other guys going ahead of him. In his second-round mock, he has actually Ohoroho going. I mean, he has Mason Smith going before Hall Jr. or Ohoroho. Ohoroho. So,
I'm sure he's great, but he doesn't feel like it, and I don't want to have him come in here on Monday and have to say his name in front of him.
Doesn't feel like it. based on his
row.
It doesn't fit
Based on
like
his
a
name.
fit for us, and I just imagine him showing up here on Tuesday and coming into Cleveland Browns Daily and me butchering saying that name.
Yeah.
And worrying that I'm not going to do it right because I hate doing that in front of somebody. It's one thing to
Of
do
course.
it behind closed doors.
By the way,
Yeah.
we forgot while we were talking about the Chiefs earlier. They also signed Hollywood Brown, so they have two
They're just
They have two
taking
4-2
swings.
guys who are going to be flying around.
Gone.
Yeah.
Worthy can burn. You'll hear from some of we talked about Belichick, we talked about the Falcons and their brass, C.J. Stroud's favorite quarterback. We'll look back on all of that coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, second hour here. It is a Mailbag Friday, so get your questions in to Gibbe at Browns_Daily, and we will answer those coming up in about 20 minutes from now. Before we get to the sound bites, a couple of things I wanted to run by you.
Please.
Marvin Harrison Jr. not signing his NFLPA. So
What's going on, brother?
I went to go look at his jersey
Can't.
on Cardinals.com. No, can't. Bootsy
Nope.
would have loved it. Beamsy probably would have
Sorry.
loved it. Can't. So he hasn't signed it yet. What is the upside here?
Marvin Harrison Jr. has not signed his NFLPA licensing deal. The message that appears on the NFL shop and other sites, attention Cardinal fans. Currently, Fanatics and other retailers are not able to offer Marvin Harrison Jr. merchandise until he signs a licensing contract with the NFLPA. Products will immediately be available once he signs.
What's his
why?
What's his? Yeah, what's the why? So
no,
this has
He's
happened.
not in Madden. He won't be in Madden.
Okay,
not
so
right now, no.
do you remember like the old there was an old NBA game in the 90s that didn't have Charles Barkley in it?
Yep.
There was one that didn't have Jordan in it.
Yep.
There's been plenty of instances where guys don't sign the NBA PA thing. In fact, I think wasn't Bernie that way in Super Tecmo? Because I don't. Or was it Tecmo? There was somebody. Somebody wasn't the player in Tecmo or Super Tecmo.
Mac Biner were there. I think Metcalf
Bernie's
was
in it, but there was somebody who wasn't.
Ozzy? No, Newsom was.
There's a player in Super Tecmo that is like quarterback 16, quarterback 11. I don't know. I can't remember who it is, but there is one that's that, and it was a prominent player. So this has happened before.
Belichick doesn't give it to Madden. It was always New England coach.
Was it New England coach? So I just don't know what the upside for Marvin is on this to not just sign it. Like, you don't have that much marketing possibilities, dude. Like to where you're going to market your own jerseys?
Right.
I mean, come on.
Not the way the NFL can reach.
No.
Randall Cunningham.
That was it. Thank you.
Randall Cunningham. Jim Kelly was quarterback Bills. Eric
Bills.
Dickerson was also not in it.
Okay.
So
So I knew that there were prominent, but Randall's the one you wanted to play with.
Yep.
And you couldn't, so he was QB Eagles.
It says his jersey, his face, and name won't appear in Madden until he signs. He would retain full rights to those intellectual properties, so he could sell his own jersey. Who's he getting to make jerseys?
Who's gonna make it? You can't make a Cardinals jersey. You're gonna sell red number 18s.
It would allow him to work out his own deal with EA Sports.
Come on, dude. Don't be so difficult. He wasn't like that. I don't know where this is coming
this
from.
Dad?
I think it might be
feels
because Dad had those weird comments about how I want him to be more selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy interviewing
And that's
him
not
was
what he-
like, was it Marty Smith?
Yeah, he was like, you weren't.
He's like, so you want your kid to be more of a diva? That's what.
Yeah.
That's your advice for him? And he's like, yeah.
I wonder if that's just bitterness because he doesn't get talked about as much from his greatness. I don't know. It's off-putting though, all of it. And then did you see David Tepper going to the bar, the Panthers owner? So there's a restaurant in Charlotte where a woman, where the sign says, please allow the coach or general manager to make the pick this year. Tepper goes in with like his Guy Friday, walks into the restaurant. It's on the security cam, takes the cap off the manager, sets it down. The manager apparently was wearing an Eagles cap and like reads him the riot act for having this sign up. Dude, you of all people should know cameras are everywhere. What are you doing?
Still hasn't learned.
No,
Still
he's
hasn't
pouring
learned.
drinks on people?
Yeah.
Mess.
I mean, debacle. By the way, on a little bit of a lighter note, did you see the interview with Brian Thomas's family? The wide receiver out of
Yes.
LSU who was drafted?
No.
Drafted by the Jags.
Oh, is this the Tony Khan stuff?
No, we'll talk about that second. Elite. Makes me like him. I was not a big fan. I like him so much more now. That was all time. And McAfee commented on it. Kayfabe's alive and well. I mean, an NFL owner was in his war room in an Andy Kaufman era style neck brace after taking a pile driver on his wrestling
Well, the
program.
NFL owner's sitting behind him.
Yes, who came out on the wrestling program. Shad came
Shad
out to tend to him after he
God.
took the vicious
They're having the
spike
time
pile
of their
driver.
life.
Yeah,
That's
fun.
good for them.
It is good for them.
Yeah.
So they interview, I think it was ABC, on the ABC broadcast, they interview his parents, Brian Thomas' parents, reporter. Sander, how far has your family come? Like, talk to the dad. He's so proud that he's been drafted. How far has your family come? The mom answers, we came from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Good. Good.
It's unreal.
That's great. All right. Let's hear from some of the luminaries from last night. So this is our guy D Orlando who asked this question. Is he in the question, or is this just
no?
This is his question.
Yeah, because
to Falcons
the
brass.
question's cut off, but
Okay.
you could just tell.
Okay, so this is D Orlando to
Yeah.
Falcons brass on the drafting of Michael Penix.
It was pretty simple for us. When you get Kirk Cousins and you talk about short-term winning, you talk about winning right now, which we know we're going to be in a position to do, which we want to be in a position to do. We won't have the ability to be picking this high again with the guy that we got. And these guys go off the board pretty quickly, and we thought it would be important for us to address our future quarterback right now while we're picking this low in these moments and to be able to move forward. You know, fortunately enough with us, we got a Kirk Cousins in the building. We got a guy that can go out there and win football games, and we should be picking high enough. We talked about winning the South. We talked about doing some of these things. That includes going to the playoffs. You just seen 6 quarterbacks go off the board before the 12th pick of the draft. And we don't want to be picking on it anymore. And Terry's done a nice job of getting us some really good players, some quality players, but we don't want to be back in that position. So let's move forward, think about the future, address that right now. We're in position to win. We put ourselves in position to win. These guys have done a great job of doing that, and that helped us make that decision, and it made it pretty definitive in our building for us and how we wanted to move tonight and how we wanted to move today with that thing happening that way.
Yep, and there are still a lot of good defensive players on the board, and we're excited to have at this point 3 picks tomorrow, and we'll make sure we continue to add to this team. Not just good defensive, there's still good offensive players on the board. So we're gonna add some good players in this draft.
Here's the deal: if he hits, then nobody cares.
Penix?
Yeah, if
We're
he
not
hits-
going to know.
No, I know, but if he hits, it doesn't matter. Then that's fine. It'll be kind of the way that it's a big if, but it'll be like Jordan Love with Green Bay. Like, he was pretty good last year. And so the feeling was, well, maybe they did okay with this thing, right? But you're missing
at what
out
cost?
on that's it. That's what you're missing out on. Yeah.
At what cost?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is it's the opportunity cost. And I think if you were to ask the guys on those Packers team, I think if you were to ask Matt LaFleur, he would have rather had a player who could have helped him win then. And for this Falcons team, yeah, maybe it works out in a few years, but what's the rest of their roster look like at that point? Oh, jeez. It's so hard to even project what you're going to be there. You brought in Kirk Cousins to win now. That was exactly the question, was 100% spot on. So why are you making a move for, in their words, like for 4 years from now?
Yeah. Bill Belichick was on with Pat McAfee last night. A lot of it was great, told some great stories. It was clear, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that he was very much preparing to be part of a draft room and a war room, and he had done a lot of homework on these players. Here he is on McAfee describing what he sees in Caleb Williams.
Well, again, Caleb's a really talented guy. He's kind of like a Russell Wilson. Really good lower body, strong, pretty fast, and has a tremendous arm. He can make all the throws. He's got a lot of different motions and all that. Sometimes that helps him, sometimes not so much. But the kid's really talented. I think if he can be more dependable, not turn the ball over, be more dependable with his reads and more consistent and help the team, that he's got a chance to be a really good player, obviously.
He was very tough on all the quarterbacks. Like, he was tough on Drake May in terms of some of his deficiencies. So it's a bit abundantly clear to me that either he thought he was going to be coaching the New England Patriots and drafting another quarterback, or he was going to be coaching a team that was drafting a quarterback, because he had done a great deal of research on the quarterback position.
Did they at all on that program discuss the report?
No, I didn't see
Wickersham.
that. I didn't see it. Not when I was watching. I wasn't watching it nonstop.
Yeah.
My hunch is if they did, it would have made its way out virally.
Was he on? He had to be on during when the Falcons picked Penix, right?
He was. He was on. I didn't see that part of it. I was
so curious.
I watched what he thought of May, and then I saw this stuff going around. But when the Patriots were picking, I wanted to see his thoughts on that.
Yep.
Sean Payton, who has overseen the dismantling of the Denver Broncos as they were built, gets his guy in Bo Nix. Let's have a listen.
I think the biggest thing is trusting what you're seeing. You could have backed up and got him. And I heard that with Patrick Mahomes when Kansas City took him. And I'm like, well, they couldn't have backed up and got him because we were taking him with the next pick. So I think before Penix was taken, we were discussing like a slight wiggle. Then you start looking at it and saying, is it worth the risk for a third-round pick? And I'm just glad it worked out in our favor. He's excited. And I just like, it's harder to be a gym rat these days. I like the fact that he's one of them.
Here's the thing with Nix and Penix. It's a great example of going to quarterback finishing school. if Penix stays at Indiana, he is not drafted in the first round, clearly. He's probably a third, fourth at best round pick, and who knows if even that. Bo Nix started as a true freshman at Auburn.
Yep.
He had some moments, but then it went bad bigly. His dad played at Auburn. There was all the pressure in the world. He goes out to Oregon, goes to quarterback finishing school for 2 years at Oregon, and now he's a first-round pick. Same thing happened with Penix playing with Kalen DeBoer out at Washington. I do think that the NFL is now a little bit more open-minded to players because they can see more of them. These guys are 60-plus starts on Nix and Penix. Like, you got a pretty good idea what they are. This isn't a situation where you're drafting a guy who started for a year or started 16 games. I mean, it's 5, 6. I mean, Penix played at Indiana, I think, in like 18.
He's older than Pitts, London, and Bijan.
Right, and Nix is older than Penix. Nix is already 24.
Yeah.
So, like, these guys have played a lot of football. Like, they went to essentially quarterback finishing school is what they did. And I think you will see more of that because the transfer portal, the college teams want those guys. Like this kid Ohio State got, this Will Howard. I'm not pretending he's going to be Nix or Penix, but he started multiple games at Kansas State. Now he gets to play at Ohio State at a year with that quarterback coach in that room with Chip Kelly. He could play himself into be a second-round pick by the time this is all said and done.
Sure.
So that it's changed kind of the mentality on all of it. All right, here's C.J. Stroud, last year's Rookie of the Year, on which quarterback was his favorite this year.
Who is your favorite quarterback in this draft?
My favorite quarterback in this draft, I mean, it's hard to just pick one. I'm in a toss.
Who's the most NFL ready?
I feel like Drake May is. You watch his tape, just his arm talent jumps off. I mean, he's one guy that, like, to me, like, the one mistake that I did early on in, like, this first couple of games was I moved around too much. Like, I didn't get the ball out on time. I started taking risks that weren't even downfield. They're necessarily scrambling. And when you watch his tape, he scrambles when he needs to. He throws guys open. He has like right here, he has rollout ability, like different arm angles. So
I feel like when you watch Drake May, you see certain things that you need to play an NFL game. Like, I feel like you're like, oh, that works and that translates. Right. And maybe the running sometimes of Caleb or Jaden, you could really get in trouble if you do that.
100%. Because like I look at scrambling, like NBA players hit jump shots. Defenders get to spots when it comes to scrambling, in my opinion. They get to their spots quicker than we can get to their spots. Just like Anthony Edwards drives down, he crosses back, he gets to his spot, he hits a shot. They get to their spot, they get their sack in a scrambling dynamic.
He was very good. CJ was very good throughout this.
Yeah.
On this.
That's what I heard. Again, I was in here without sound doing radio till midnight, so I didn't get to watch all this. I had so many people text me about Stroud, about Belichick and the McAfee show. People loved that.
Yeah,
loved
that was good
universally. I'm sad. I feel like they've even stepped it up even more. So I'm sad that I've missed out on some of this. By the way, we have some news.
Go ahead, read it.
I don't even know how to react to this, honestly. To reduce player risk and continue driving innovations in equipment technology, Guardian caps have been authorized for in-game use this season.
So for those who don't know, the Guardian cap is that padded Velcro thing that's put on top of a helmet. You see us wear them in
running backs
camp a lot.
Linebackers, tight ends.
Yeah.
Just not receivers, corners, safeties, quarterbacks.
Yeah, so you see it in practice a lot in camp, but then they've never been used in games. So this is a pretty big step, and you bring up a great point. Like, if that is the case, they're going to have to be painted to match helmets.
But they're not going to have the logo on them.
Well, no, because they're fabric.
So what are we you have teams that are rolling out beautiful uniforms with beautiful multi-helmets. I think
we're to the point where we've gone overboard, and we have to just all acknowledge that this is not necessarily a 100% safe sport. No sport is. There will be some injury. We go to great lengths to protect the players.
Technology.
We've come so far. This feels like a bridge too far for me. It seems pretty silly.
My guess is nobody's going to wear them.
I bet somebody does. I bet it starts out small and then it ends up.
It cannot be the norm. That cannot be the way that
well, they're never going to undo it.
They're
never going to take it away. Once you introduce it, you're going to keep it until the helmet technology allows for a similar. What's going to happen is they're going to have to create a helmet that has, an exoskeleton that is soft, I guess. Because you're not going to have guys running around like that.
I hope not. I hope not. I really hope that it's wild.
It is, yeah.
By the way, Gibbe, can we get from it's on Awful Announcing's Twitter, Mina Kimes' takedown of the Falcons selection of Michael Penix Jr.? Diana Rossini says, below, Mina Kimes left no meat on this bone. Her points are aligned with the majority of head coaches and GM I've spoken to the last 12 hours. I'll add one more thing from a GM. Mr. Blank is how old? 81. He wants to win now. He shouldn't be obsessing over 26 and beyond. They have needs now. So apparently it's pretty good. And
we'll listen to it in the break, and then we'll see how she did. All right, we've got your Griff fact of the day. Remember, it is a Mailbag Friday edition of the program presented by the Cross Country Mortgage Company. Get those questions into Gibbe at Browns_Daily. We will get to those coming up here shortly. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And Bo here for the James B. Beam Distilling Company. Some say that rye whiskey is having a moment. Overholt has been having their moment for over 200 years. The legacy continues today with A. Overholt. I had a pour of this last night.
Delightful.
Does not taste like your typical, what you would think would be rye. It's a little bit sweeter.
Some in here at about 10:30.
It's a long drive, The latest chapter. You guys should just stop working sooner, is what you should have done. Should have just done that. The latest chapter in the ever-evolving story of American rye, though. Taste what 2 centuries of experience can make with a robust Pennsylvania-style rye whiskey. The newest thing in rye is also the oldest, and it is available now. Those just hit the shelves this week, so check those out. Time for the Griff Fact of the Day.
Fact of the day, fact of the day, fact of the day. It's the Griff Fact of the Day.
J.J. McCarthy is the first Michigan skill position player drafted in the first round since Braylon Edwards back in 2005. They've had a lot of defense and O-line, but no offensive skill players.
Wow.
And that's how you struggle the way that they struggled for the gross majority of that time. And it's really only until recently that they got it flipped around. But it's not a coincidence that they finally landed a quarterback to be able to do so. And their skill guys are good, too. They're going to have a bunch of second, third-round guys here coming off the board. Across the board.
And next year they might. Could that tight end that they have next year maybe creep into the first?
Yeah, in play. Sure. Yeah.
A little bit of news, gentlemen.
Go.
Roger Goodell on the Pat McAfee show here this afternoon. Roger Goodell officially mulling a future with 18 regular season games, a President's Day weekend Super Bowl, and a significant increase in international games where it could be up to 16 games a year playing overseas.
I don't know that there's any need.
You don't need every team to go overseas every year.
You definitely don't need every team to go overseas every year. You do not. I don't think that. No, you don't need that. Here's what I would do. They're never going to do it. I'd go 16-game regular season. You and I were talking in the break. We've talked about this many times. Go double bye. 18 games. It's a bloodbath.
Same number of weeks. The season will be exactly as long as it is right now.
Yeah, keep the season right where it is. I love President's Day Super Bowl.
That sounds great
because that gives you a Monday off the following day.
It's exactly. I mean, he's quoted, and then you have Monday off.
Did he say double bye?
Adding an additional regular season game could theoretically result in a second bye week being added, which would lengthen the regular season, but Goodell would welcome that, he said, as he envisions a President's Day weekend built around the Super Bowl on Sunday night. Quote, and then you have Monday off.
That's fine. I like that. Did McAfee say, what the heck are we doing with these helmet doodads?
I don't know if that
I think that
come
just
out
dropped.
yet
I think this was last night with Goodell, wasn't it?
No, it was right at the top of the show way before this news broke.
What's that now, bud?
But the news broke about the helmets, so was it
the
like 1
news
o'clock
broke
today?
about that.
This was
after.
So this was at 1 o'clock when he was on.
Noon,
correct.
I think.
I got you.
He was on at noon
because he was on yesterday too. Last night he was on.
was-
He's making the rounds. He likes the McAfee.
He was out in the plaza this afternoon at noon as well with McAfee.
Okay. All right. Good job, dude. So there you go. On that type of things. All right. Should we do the mailbag? Mailbag coming up next.
Sure.
Ready for a little mailbag? Little mailbag edition of the program. Get your questions into Gibbe at Browns_Daily. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, sports betting partner of Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Who were they thinking we were going to pick that elicited that response on the Denzel pick?
Wasn't that Chubb?
Was it Bradley Chubb?
At least that's what our fans wanted in the parking lot when Zagura made the announcement.
I mean, booed off the stage
with the Denzel
in the Muni lot, and we picked a Buckeye. And I said that. I think I said that. I was like, you guys have been wanting a Buckeye to be picked for years, and what are you doing?
From Northeast Ohio, too.
Yeah,
a Buckeye.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Shout out Nordonia
kid.
High.
Yeah, very much.
Coach Fox.
Yep.
Yeah. That's weird. I couldn't remember who was like, oh, we have to have this guy.
Well, and I forgot.
It was Bradley
That's
Chubb.
why we included the one in the beginning. Like, we got that pick from Houston so they could take Deshaun Watson.
Correct.
Yes.
That part I do remember.
And then Watson got hurt, and so that pick ended up being a lot better than you might have thought it would be.
Yeah. So Bradley Chubb's been pretty good. 2-time Pro Bowler.
40 sacks.
Yeah. Yeah, 40 sacks on his. Both of them have been really good.
I mean, you had Denzel, Bradley Chubb, Quentin Nelson, Josh Allen, Roquan Smith is a pretty strong 5 consecutive
It's pretty
picks.
good, yeah.
McGlinchey's not bad. Rosen, garbage. And then it went Minka Fitzpatrick, Vita Vea, Duron Payne, back to back to back. That's pretty good, too.
Here's the thing I would remind, though, that the story you just told on
this draft was
with
loaded.
Denzel and Bradley was nobody knows anything.
Of course.
You don't. So you fall in love with an idea,
but
they don't know.
Part of it is when you watch these things, everything is presented in the best case outcome, like best case scenario, right?
Yeah.
So it's this guy, like they'll be talking about a guy in the 5th round, unbelievable speed. He did this, but like he was in the 5th round for a reason. They don't, and people have their opinions, and it's easy to say your opinion very vociferously or boisterously when there are no evidentiary points to combat you.
Correct.
They haven't played in the league yet.
No, they haven't played in the league, and the thing is people don't remember your misses.
Right. No,
largely.
And no, who brings them up?
Yeah.
Remember when I told you about such and such?
Yeah.
I mean, go back the 2011 NFL Draft Preview cover of Sports Illustrated. The 2011 QB class. You choose Jake Locker? ?
Yeah.
Blaine Gabbert? ? Cam Newton? ? The toughest call in football. Was it?
Yeah. That's it. That's what it was. Yeah, it's the opposite of the Wolf of Wall Street line where he says, I ask you to not judge me on my winners, but on my losers because there are so few.
Because there are so few.
That's it. All right, Mailbag, presented by the Cross Country Mortgage Company, the official mortgage partner of your Cleveland Browns when it comes to financing. They're always going to get you home. Visit ccm.com today. Equal housing opportunity. NMLS 3029. Hello, Gibby.
Hi, guys. Tweet your questions to @Browns_daily on this Friday. A couple from yesterday.
Yep.
One was, can you ask AB or Glenn, even though we don't have a chance for some of these top guys in the draft, do they still talk to some of them to possibly grab in free agency in a few years?
I wouldn't think you would do it with that. Maybe just to get an idea of
potential for a trade. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're still looking at guys, but, I mean, if they are really what you expect them to be, they're not going to be available in free agency.
No.
Not me. Browns Daily. This is last night. I got a kick out of this. Took me to pick 2 to realize ESPN's using your music beds. Keep waiting for Bo Bishop to say, all right, let's do it live.
That's pretty good.
Do it live.
That is pretty good.
By the way, did you see that the Vikings, it is confirmed the Vikings did go make a run at Justin Herbert?
I did. Them and the Patriots both made calls on that. Yeah. I thought the only team that could have done it would have been the Bears. They would have had like the assets to be able to make them think about it. You know, if you're the Chargers. Yeah.
If you're the Chargers, would you have just taken Caleb Williams for Herbert straight up for the salary?
You might have.
Alone.
Since they're kind of restarting anyway, you could have
Yeah.
just taken Caleb Williams right away, kept him in Southern California.
Yeah, maybe
even
Falcons
another
should have
maybe
Herbert in Chicago
like
with that team.
1 and a 9 for Herbert might have done it.
I want Herbert to have a doozy.
Mac Jim Zagura, why do you throw your bottle cap away as soon as you open your water? That's weird, just as weird as having to say better or worse.
So this is one thing you do. Like I noticed when I never thought of it in that sense, nor do I think it's weird, but you do take the bottle cap and eliminate it right away, whereas I leave the bottle cap on to prevent spillage.
Yeah, which I've had once.
We've had one spillage.
Because I'm going to drink it.
No, but in all fairness,
I don't
as
wanna
I
have to
clean up
take it
the
on and
studio
off.
after the show every day,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily drink all the water.
What if he was in here Mr. Clean style?
What does
like
that
with
mean?
Paper towel,
Like,
like it's cleaning it?
Usually, there are times where you definitely miss with the bottle cap. The bottle you hit. The bottle cap, and then I'm happy because I need the bottle cap to close the water up to throw it
I
away.
can't believe he's using this as a vehicle to come at me again.
I'm not.
This is unbelievable.
I'm just
I
telling
throw
you.
it right in there.
Of course, this was going to be used as an opportunity. Of course,
100%.
Of course, it was.
Of course. Least surprising thing ever.
I'm just saying, like, you don't finish your water, but I don't know how many people actually do.
But what am I going to do? Leave that water here in a half-drink bottle? What's the difference? I throw it all
Actually,
out
you
anyway.
do. You leave it on the table. I clean it up after the show.
Maybe it could be here for me tomorrow. Breathing nature's air.
If you'd like, if
You know,
you'd
you
like
should
me
do
to
what
leave
Bootsy
it for
does
you
and just
tomorrow,
says,
I can put it.
They
in a
don't
place
need to
that
get in
will not be
trouble.
great.
I did it.
I don't even see a water bottle on
You
my
don't today, no.
area.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing? It's as weird as saying better or worse?
Yes.
Yeah, because higher or lower is dumb.
David Lurie. Good job, Nathan.
It's confusing.
You guys
It's
should
confusing.
differentiate draft busts from horrible picks by the team. Guys like Lance and Trubisky aren't busts because they weren't drafted high by teams without much tape to go off of. Put it on the team over the player.
No, they're busts.
No, they're busts.
They're busts.
I mean, Trubisky, I fought back
You
on.
fought
He took
back
him to the
on.
playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
There is no black or white on it. It's gray area.
Yes.
When it comes to the bust conversation.
More from the Falcons. Cleveland is the reason. The Falcons drafted a tight end and 4th overall over
Ahead of
Jamar
Chase.
Chase, Micah Parsons,
That's right.
Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith.
Correct.
Drafted Drake London over Garrett Wilson and Kyle Hamilton. Passed on Jalen Carter to draft a running back at pick 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rockin'
Fondo's
Robbie
got
says
his resume
John
is loaded.
Dowd, D-O-W-D, as Barry Bonds in MVP Baseball 2005.
Yeah,
That's
that
a nice
was
that's a good one.
another one. Yeah, there's a few of those through the years.
Yeah.
I remember in a FIFA a long time ago, the Brazilian Ronaldo was Calcio 9 because he played for Inter Milan as opposed to Ronaldo. So there's a few of those out there.
Yeah.
He was a beast, by the way, before the knees took him out.
Why don't you go ahead and just be a part of it?
It's weird. I don't know what he's doing.
Brandon G., do you see the Browns drafting offensive line?
Yes.
At some point this weekend? Absolutely.
Yes, we do.
I do.
It's well documented, Brandon.
Enough from the clown. Mailbag questions for the boys. After day one, who had the best day, who had the worst day? Well, I think we know who had the worst day.
Bears, franchise quarterback, another number one receiver.
Definitely the Bears. Bears, and I'd say Vikings in terms of accomplishing what they wanted to do.
Yep.
Even though the Vikings gave up basically their entire draft in 2025.
They got their quarterback in an edge rusher.
People said this. We're complaining about Houston last year. How'd that work?
How
could you give up?
No. I'm just asking.
Oh, my God. No. I know. But, like, people, look what Houston did. It doesn't matter if you hit.
Yes.
If you hit, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
If
you miss, it's
then you're fired. But, like,
prefer to play Augusta or Pebble?
That's not a fair one because anybody can play Pebble. Nobody can play Augusta. So what you should do in that, enough from the clown, is, and you should take Augusta out of it. So it should be like Cypress or Pine Valley, or should it be
or Augusta? Those.
But you'd still choose Augusta because of the nostalgia.
Cypresses.
But there's nostalgia
for
sure.
sure.
So like if you the good one would be Augusta once, or Pebble. I think we did this once.
Yes,
Pebble,
we did.
Once a year for the rest of your golfing life. That's when we have to, because you can't play Augusta. That's the problem.
No.
What's the genesis of Malencic's show name Uno?
That's on you guys. I don't know that.
He was Esteban Uno, 1.0, like the
1.0,
the second Uno,
the second Stevie.
Yeah, second Stevie,
second
Esteban,
Esteban
Uno.
Eaten, swallowed, eaten, swallowed whole.
Was he chewed? No.
Well, I also can't escape it now at this point. Like,
have you seen?
You're welcome.
People are calling me out on Twitter, in
That's
public,
great. Perfect.
all over the place.
Then it's worked.
Yeah,
Are
absolutely.
you? Have you seen Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou?
No.
I referenced it on the draft preview show last night.
Did you really?
Because the tackle from BYU is Kingsley
Zissou.
Sumamata
Taya, I think.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
And I just called him Kingsley, and I said, may as well be Kingsley Zissou from the great film The Life Aquatic.
Let's go.
After losing Harrison Bryant to free agency and using a few visits on some tight ends, what do you think the chances are we draft a tight end today? In particular, Jatavian Sanders from
Holy
Texas,
hell.
Spirit of CBD.
That guy's locked in. He's dropping.
Spirit of CBD's his name?
That's
dropping
his
that.
thing. At Alex Sirky.
Good job, Alex. He's locked in.
So, guys out of Texas, number 2 tight end on Dane's board, 682 yards, 2 touchdowns last year, first team all Big 12. He needs to become more available in his routes and improve his reliability as a blocker, but smooth operator, dynamic talent before, during, and after the catch, presents as an F tight end with starting upside in the NFL. So we're 11 personnel. I don't think we need to draft a tight end. I think, could we, as the replacement for Jordan Akins? Yes. Does that happen in the 2nd or 3rd round? In my opinion, probably not. I just don't see where that's we're going to live in 11 personnel. We are going to be 3 receivers, 1 tight end, which is David Njoku, and 1 linebacker or 1 running back. Jordan Akins will be that 2nd tight end, and then, will they try to get somebody in here to compete to be the 3rd tight end? I'm sure that could be a draft pick or an undrafted free agent to push Zaire Mitchell-Payton, who is actually, they have a pretty good trio right now because Mitchell-Payton's a big guy and a good blocker. He's not necessarily much of a receiver, but Akins is a very good receiver. So I don't think that's a big need, and I certainly don't think that would be an early-ish selection if it does happen. Not early enough to take, 2nd or 3rd round pick.
One final one from KBM. Where are you 3 in the hierarchy of luminaries? I am not.
You're the head honcho.
That would be you 2.
I'm not.
You're the head
not
honcho.
involved at all. I'm on the outside looking in.
That's why we talk about the luminaries.
You have medium. You're a medium L luminary at this point.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
You bet on the Peach?
Bobby, what is the most outdated piece of technology you own and actually use? Cable.
Yeah, for you.
For me.
For sure.
This one's personal. Why has Gibby not asked any of my questions the past 2 weeks? Is his job performance slipping? Remember when he missed a whole 30 minutes of the show, Nathan Zagura? Make sure you ask this one.
I do. So much
Who
more
asked
to
that?
come. You're listening to Cleveland
I
Browns
don't know.
Daily on
Can
850
Gibby do that?
ESPN Cleveland.
Bobby!
Hey, Bobby! Sorry about mean, evil Gibby.
Bobby.
Does
Bobby
Bobby
had a bunch of good ones.
Do you have a good one? Do we have time for one Bobby?
We do.
Yeah, let's get some Bobby.
Oh, my. The X is just, it can't be relied upon
It's a cesspool
anymore. I mean, I don't even have, now, like at the top, they keep shoving you back in. All right, here you go. Name one movie you think should have a sequel that doesn't.
What about Bob?
Commando. It's set up. Why did they not do another one? It was a huge hit.
First celebrity guest in your very own talk show, Larry David.
LD.
Yeah.
Be tough to beat.
What would
you have to, I will say this, having seen Eisen interview him and other people interview him, like, you better come ready.
Oh, he's
to
gonna
go.
He's gonna barb with you.
Well, yeah, and sometimes if he's not interested, he's just not interested, and he'll say it. You know, Letterman would be a fun one for me. He was a big deal in my youth. I would.
What Netflix show did you binge watch embarrassingly quickly? I wasn't embarrassed by it, but I remember the show You.
1 minute.
I watched that one. We watched all the seasons of that. That's
my problem with Netflix is if I start one of their shows and I like it, I will watch the whole damn thing as soon as I can.
Yeah,
like I just did that with The Gentleman. I watched that
Oh,
over
yeah.
like
Gentleman
I started
very
it.
quick.
I watched it in like there's only like 6 episodes. It's like 6 straight days. Done. Yeah.
It's good.
I think probably the best Netflix one, because there was a catalog of it, was probably Peaky Blinders. They were a couple of seasons into it, and so I blew through those.
That's always like for us with Outlander. Just
just
rolling through.
All right, have fun. Enjoy day 2 of the draft.
I'll be back.
54
7 o'clock
overall. 3rd round as well. Going to be fun tonight. Let's hope for the best. Kids will be back on Monday to break it all down. The next level is next. Thanks for listening. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.